Alrighty, y'all, we're back with part two of this thing. I'm not going to do a weird, like, close-up face thing for YouTube just because I already kind of did the intro in the last one. Go watch part one if you didn't. It'd be kind of weird for you to watch part two before part one. But yeah, we're looking at every NBA team's top three trade deadline targets. We went through the first half in the last video. Let's go through the second half. So we last did the Memphis Grizzlies. We're halfway through now. We're on to the Miami Heat. Ayo Dosunmu, Nasir Little, and Chris Boucher. The Nasir Little one is just weird to me because I just don't think Nasir Little is a very good NBA player in general. No hate or anything to him, obviously. I'm just not a huge fan of his game. I'm not exactly sure what he's supposed to be. Is he supposed to be like an undersized, attempted stretch four? I don't really know. But Chris Boucher, that's an interesting one. Obviously, they don't have like phenomenal backup big play on this team. Like, you've got dudes like Kevin Love and stuff who do some things, right? And then you've got like Thomas Bryant on the team. Hasn't been like a huge factor this year. So like the Chris Boucher one is kind of interesting. I don't know who you would move to make that like money work or anything, but I like the idea. The Ayo Dosunmu one is really interesting. They need another point guard. Like, they got Rozier obviously, so that was an upgrade, but they don't like have another ball handler really on the team. And the Dosunmu one is interesting because the Bulls clearly don't really want to play him very much. At least like they've got way too many guards on the team. So putting him on a team like Miami, as a Bulls fan, I can tell you this kid's a hard worker and stuff, and he's shown plenty of life from 3-point range. He can get to the rack. He plays good defense. Like, I like it as a backup point guard in Miami. I could really see that taking place, and that's a move I'd like to see. I want to see Ayo go somewhere where he can be happy. Also, just another point, like, kind of weird they didn't put Caruso on this, right? Doesn't that just seem like a very obvious one to put here? But, well, who knows, right? On to the next team. Who do we got? The Milwaukee Bucks, Matisse Thybulle. Ooh, Royce O'Neal and Chris Dunn. I like all three of these. I didn't think of any of these three guys to be on the Bucks. Matisse Thybulle would be really interesting. If you can't tell by these names, they're trying to bring some defense to this team. Defense has been a little bit of the struggle. Obviously, Doc Rivers is going to be the new coach now. I think Monday he's coaching his first game. I could be wrong. But the idea is he's going to make things a little more defensive. Matisse Thybulle's not someone that the Blazers need by any means. I like Thybulle. I would want Thybulle on my team just as a dude. His 3-point shots improved, and he's a really, really good perimeter defender. Younger dude too, fits that wing role really well. So a dude I just want to keep on my team. I don't think there's any harm in Portland keeping him, but if you can get something valuable for him at the same time, you're not going to be good anytime soon anyway, so why not? As far as like why the Bucks would want him, right? Like, obviously just adding a little more defense is going to be critical. Like, any of these dudes that come off the bench just need to be defensive players, and if they can shoot a little bit, then great, which I think Matisse would probably do fine in, considering how many good players are going to be around him. So if you're bringing Matisse off the bench, you might have a pretty good thing going. As far as the other ones, like the Chris Dunn one, I like probably the second most because they could use some backup point guard play. So why not have a defensive kind of a ball handling guard in Chris Dunn, right? Like, that's something that we've seen out of him in Utah. Again, stuff that we've seen out of him his whole career. Very good defensive player, not an elite shooter or scorer by any means. Can have his moments because he's pretty good in transition and things like that, but competent NBA player, plays good defense, makes a lot of sense. And Royce O'Neal, just veteran defender, kind of stretch wing and stuff, kind of like a little bit worse Matisse Thybulle, right? So I like these. I like these a lot for Milwaukee. Minnesota Timberwolves. I can already tell I'm going to like these, but these are... Okay, you know what? Let me just read the names. Tyus Jones, Doug McDermott, Monte Morris. I like all of these. I think all of these are good ideas. Obviously, Tyus Jones had a great stint in Minnesota. He's the assist to turnover god, right? Just a game manager, right? And Minnesota desperately needs some more point guard play and stuff. I think they could use a scoring point guard to come off the bench, just because I don't see them having a ton of bench scoring. Naz Reid has his moments and everything, but he can't really create for himself. So I'd like to see them have like a scoring point guard, because Conley's kind of the game manager, but I like the idea, and I like the Doug McDermott idea too. Having a wing that can shoot on this team is something that's needed right now. So makes a ton of sense. How do you make this trade happen though? I don't know. Is like a Kyle Anderson or something, someone that's valuable to people? Because like, I don't think he's necessarily critical to this Timberwolves team. And you know, he at least makes a little bit of money, but there's not like a ton of salary players to throw around. There's not a ton of draft picks that you can throw around like at all on this team. So I don't know how you actually make trades as the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think more so you're gonna have to watch the buyout market to try and add some talent, which I think is going to be hard to convince people to do too, because I don't think people really like playing with Rudy Gobert. Ant might be enticing, and maybe Mike Conley talk someone into it. Hard to say, but that's just a side note. But I love the idea. I'd love to get a scoring guard in there though. Like I think like a Kobe White or something would be kind of cool in Minnesota. I could also see like Kyle Lowry if he like hit the buyout market ending up in Minnesota. That'd be kind of tight as well. But yeah, I like the idea for Minnesota. New Orleans, Jared Allen. Ooh, we're getting ambitious. Wendell Carter and Daniel Gafford. Bigs. Yeah, Valanciunas is a very solid option and everything. He's not a great rim defender, right? Very solid, strong center, right? Does a lot of things well. He's a nice, like, offensive around the rim player. Can step out and hit every once in a while, right? Larry Nance, good defensive player, right? Like, kind of like the modern Taj Gibson, if you will, right? Like, just like does a really good job of playing good team defense and everything, can go get above the rim, things like that. Very strong. Doesn't do anything else particularly great. Jared Allen, very, very good player, right? Like, we don't have to do any hard math to just say Jared Allen is a better option than any of the things that the New Orleans Pelicans currently have at center. Wendell Carter is probably he's been kind of rocky this year. He's been a little bit banged up, so that one's a little iffy. Gafford as a backup, I could see that. I don't know if he's a starter over Valanciunas. I think it's more of a question than people might like to think it is, but I'd still lean Valanciunas. But I like the idea of having like a run, jump, and dunk center on this team, especially for when Zion's not in the game. I just think having that rim threat when you have guys like Brandon Ingram trying to work in the mid-range a little bit more is very valuable, even if they can just kind of be in the dunker spot, so that if he gets a strong enough contest and people have to help up on him, he can dump that ball off. But anyway, I do think this is the right idea. I don't think they need any more wings on this team. Maybe they could use like another point guard on the team. I don't really know what the market looks like for that. Like, does a Tyus Jones really make a ton of sense for this team? I don't know. But I like the idea. I don't know what you're trading to get Jared Allen, though, but you'd have to give up a couple of these really valuable wings and everything, which Cleveland would probably be happy to do, right? But then why are they giving up Jared Allen? I don't know. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but I like the idea. Alrighty, the Knicks. I'm sure plenty of you are excited to talk about this. Jordan Clarkson, Bruce Brown, Malcolm Brogdon. I have to stop and think about this one a little. So the idea with Clarkson, obviously, is you get that six-man score. That's not something that's currently present on the Knicks. Okay, that one makes sense to me. What are you trading to get him? I don't know. Bruce Brown, we've said it before, just kind of fits in everywhere, right? I presume you're kind of giving up like a Quentin Grimes to do that, which seems kind of weird. Not completely sure I want to get rid of Q Grimes, but fair enough. And then Malcolm Brogdon, yeah, just having like another solid point guard like that is always good. I don't think any of these are necessarily like hard things to imagine. I guess like, I don't know. It doesn't seem that hard to imagine that these would be like hard fits by any means, but I do have to wonder like what are you giving up to make them happen? So I think that's the only question, right? Clarkson could help fill that quick strike scoring void. Yeah, I mean, that's the idea, right? Is he's coming in being a bench scorer and everything like that. Like, I guess I don't have a ton of analysis to these. Like, it's just like, those just make sense, right? Like, they need a bench scorer, and they could probably use a more experienced backup point guard if they're going to contend. Miles McBride is only so good right now. I'm glad he got the extension and everything. He's going to get the chance to develop a little more, but I'm not completely sold on his game yet by any means, but anxious to see him grow, obviously. But yeah, no, like getting a backup guard to take some ball handling duties away from Brunson, I guess, off the bench. Sure, do it. Oklahoma City Thunder. Ooh, I like the first one already. I believe we've actually talked about this on the channel before, but Kelly Olynyk would be a good fit. Royce O'Neal and Gordon Hayward. Sure, if you want a free Gordon Hayward, they could use like a more traditional wing on this team. That makes a lot of sense. He's a good veteran presence, right? He gets to go play for a winning team. He'll be nice and motivated. Like that. Royce O'Neal, they're just kind of throwing him into anything where they could use like 3-and-D veteran wings. Fair enough, right? You probably don't have to give up much to get him, right? Kelly Olynyk, that's the one I really like, actually, because there's not a ton of big men on this team, right? Chet has done an amazing job filling that role. They could use another big on the team, and he brings a lot of toughness, right? Like Kelly Olynyk like exudes toughness, and I think that's kind of a role that they're missing a bit on this team, is some guy that like really kind of screams that. I think Lou Dort does in a lot of ways, but maybe in a not so obvious way like Kelly Olynyk might do. And just having another like bigger guy in the court that can step out and hit a shot or two, I like that a lot. I'd love to see Kelly Olynyk end up on this team. Orlando Magic, let me guess, shooters? Yeah, pretty much. Anthony Simons, Q Grimes, Malcolm Brogdon. The Q Grimes one makes a ton of sense, right? Younger guy that's kind of in their trajectory as to when they think they're going to be a little more relevant. He's a shooter, right? Awesome. That's cool. Malcolm Brogdon bringing in a guy that's kind of just the clear point guard on this team, because they're really trying to figure that out right now. Like Anthony Black doesn't get like nearly as many minutes now, and I can't say I'm particularly surprised. Like, not everybody has to be an elite scorer in the NBA, right? I hate when people clown on people for stuff like that. But Anthony Black's just not quite ready yet, in my opinion. I think he's going to be a nice player. I think he's very smart, and his defense is very good already. So I'm not saying he can't be in the rotation at all. I don't think he's ready to start exactly on this team. And you might be saying like, oh, well, like all those defensive numbers that they were doing, part of that was because Anthony Black was in there. I think that's probably kind of fair to say. I think it's more so part on the team defense and everyone else out there, but obviously having a big point guard like him that has good defensive instincts is nice. But I think they'd just rather have a guy like Brogdon or something run the show. And then Anthony Simons, Anthony Simons is putting up like big numbers, just a big time scorer, right? And they could probably use a guy that's a little bit we'll say more traditional. We're calling it traditional. We'll say modern, I guess, in how he generates his own shots and everything. Obviously, he's kind of the only guy people are keying in on in Portland at the moment, and he's still putting up big numbers. It sounds like Damian Lillard is still kind of even coaching him from afar, which is pretty cool. So throwing him in to Orlando is just kind of that main point guard for them, their go-to scorer and everything. I could actually see this. This is a couple teams in a row where I actually agree with a lot of the things they're saying. Philadelphia 76ers, Dorian Finney-Smith, Bogdan Bogdanovic, and Alex Caruso. All right, so all of these are very different. We've got a 3-and-D wing, we have a scoring-oriented guard, and then Alex Caruso, which is just kind of just energy, like defense, grit, right? I mean, you can kind of throw Alex Caruso on anything. He's just going to be a better version of Pat Bev out there, so fair enough if that's what we want to do. If any team wants Caruso, you're not going to hear me questioning it, right? It's just going to make your team better. It just will. Bogdan, that's an interesting one. They don't really have a player like him. He's going to, I shouldn't say, he's just a better version of Korkmaz, right? And so whatever you got to give up to get him, I think is probably fine, as long as you don't have to give up like B-Ball Paul or something like that, because I don't really think I trust the rest of the bigs on this team unless you can find another big to kind of replace them with. So throwing Bogdanovic into this team, he slides probably right into the starting two, something like that, to go along with like Tobias and Embiid and Maxey and all of them, like just be more of a floor spacer. I could see that. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And then the Dorian Finney-Smith, again, just 3-and-D guy. I think they've got plenty of those, honestly. So I don't know what you're giving up to get him. Is this just where you're kind of throwing the Morris contract at, I guess, just to get him onto the team in Dorian Finney-Smith? So I guess like that's, I don't know how much that really helps the team, but if it's the difference between paying Dorian Finney-Smith and Morris, I guess I'd rather have Finney-Smith. So that one's kind of to me. Like all of these are pretty like to me. So I don't know, except the Caruso one. Like Caruso, you throw him on the team, yeah, your team gets better. That just makes a ton of sense. Phoenix Suns, this better be point guards. No. Okay, look, before we even step into this, I'm in the camp of saying that the Phoenix Suns need some point guards. I know they're saying like they don't need it between Booker and Beal and all that. I'd like to see them have a true point guard on this team. All right, I want somebody that's going to run this offense and everything, that can step out and hit a three or something like that, guard the other team's point guards and stuff. I just think it's going to make things a little bit easier. All right, that's just where I stand. Chris Dunn, I think, serves that role and everything. He can come off the bench if he wants to. That's fine. We just need someone that can come out and do it, right? Alec Burks, another scoring guard. I would say he's not as good as Eric Gordon at this point. I'm pretty confident in saying that, actually. So Alec Burks doesn't make a ton of sense to me. You don't need that player. I don't care if he doesn't want to be in Detroit or anything like that. You don't need him. You have players better than him that do the exact same thing. Andre Drummond, that makes a ton of sense, right? They could use some help with the backup big and everything. Andre Drummond comes in and just serves as a rebounder for him and just a big body to set some mean screens to, maybe throw an alley-oop or two. He's still got a little bit of that in him. So makes a ton of sense. Guys that can get rebounds when Beal, Book, and Durant take their shots. Perfectly fine. That makes a ton of sense. I'd like to see them go after like I said, some point guards though. I'm trying to think of like who would be a good fit. Oh, like Terry Rozier was the one I wanted to see get over there. There was no way to make that happen, like financially, but I think that would have been really interesting. Maybe Kyle Lowry comes over here now. I think that'd be a great fit. I still don't think it'd be the worst thing to go find John Wall and put him on this roster. So I'm just putting it out there and saying that you can't tell me he's not better than some of the dudes on this team. But yeah, I'd like to see them prioritize point guards a little more. Chris Dunn's probably an easy one to go get. Go get him. Alrighty, the Portland Trailblazers. Draft picks, Jonathan Kuminga and Jarris Walker. All right, so I'm kind of just assuming that this is them saying they're sending, I'm guessing, Jeremy Grant to the Warriors in this scenario, and Brogdon would be going back to Indy, or whatever order you want to put this in. We can talk about, like, we talked about earlier, like the Pacers. I don't necessarily think they need another point guard on this team. And now that they have Siakam, they don't need Jeremy Grant. So I don't know how either of those guys are ending up there. But the idea of them just taking in a younger asset like a Jarris Walker to see if he works out is something that they should be doing, right? Like just get him in the front office, see how he is, put him on the court, see what he does. Right. He hasn't gotten a ton of playing time this year. He's probably not going to get a ton of playing time. And that probably means he's not that great right now. But I mean, a lot of rookies are coming in not that great at this point. I don't think next year's going to be any exception. I think it's going to be harder and harder for these guys to come in and play in the league unless they're coming from overseas. And I truly mean that. But that's just an observation. Then Kuminga. Yeah, that'd be an interesting one. Kuminga clearly wants to go be a guy somewhere where he can have the ball a little bit more. The roster's not going to fit him very well with all the like non-shooting on the team, but hey, I'm still down for them to get these two dudes in and see how they fit along guys like Scoot Henderson. And then obviously draft picks. Yeah, if you can just find a way to unload some of these dudes that it doesn't make sense to have on your team at this point and acquire some draft capital, yeah, you go ahead and do that. Next, Sacramento Kings. Yeah, you knew Kuzma was going to be one. Jeremy Grant. Yeah, and then Bojan Bogdanovic from the Pistons. Okay, so they're looking for stretch wings / bigs, like stretch fours, essentially, right? And I don't think I completely understand why. I think Keegan Murray is a very, very good basketball player, and I think he's only going to get better. He's got a lot of it to me, and I know that's a really like weird thing to say, but like as a basketball coach, that's just kind of a term that I use sometimes, where I'm like, just in the way he moves, like I see him able to like attack a closeout so well and get to the rim. He's also such a good catch and shoot player. I just really like Keegan a lot. So I don't want to see him get like relegated or moved somewhere else. Like, I don't know. I'd rather them just keep developing him and try to keep that continuity, but I understand wanting to get better and get competitive now, but I don't think the answer is taking in a Jeremy Grant or something and all that money, or an aging Bojan. Like, Kuzma's a very good basketball player and he's definitely better than Keegan Murray right now, but I just rather see that development continue. And then maybe you say, oh, we're moving Keegan to the 3 or something like that and Kuzma's there. I think Keegan's best is the stretch 4, and that's what I want to see. All right, so I don't want them to go get a power forward or something like that. Go find a backup point guard that can shoot. That I think would be more valuable. Again, take Kobe White. Go take Zach LaVine or something if you want a 2-guard that can score from somewhere, because Kevin Huerter's been bad, and the Bulls will take Kevin Huerter, I guess, and I'll be sad. But I don't think you need the 4 in Sacramento, so I'm going to go against these ones. San Antonio Spurs, please be point guards. Please be point guards. Draft picks, DeJounte Murray, Killian Hayes. No team should want Killian Hayes. I'm not even just saying this because of like the Twitter memes and everything. I just don't think he's a good NBA player. Like, probably a great dude. I actually recruited a dude that played with him in high school, says he's a good dude and everything. So shout out Killian Hayes. Don't think he's a great NBA player. So I don't think he's going to be in the league probably much longer, but who knows? Detroit keeps trying to put him on the court to see what they have. So fair enough. DeJounte Murray makes a ton of sense, right? A guy that's a proven like ball distributor and everything. He's going to be able to get the ball to Wemby and everything. Shooting, as we've kind of talked about before, while it's been good this year, is still suspect to me. And so that always worries me with DeJounte a little bit, and the defense has fallen off a little bit. You'd like to think if he got back in San Antonio, which that'd just be so ironic if they traded him back. That'd just be hilarious to me. Like, they just kind of made a little profit lending him out for like a year and a half or however long it's been. But yeah, I just think that he would be good in San Antonio again, and they just need some point guard help, right? Like I've been saying, whoever they get in the draft and everything, they might have 2 lottery picks this year. Taking a point guard this year, maybe it's Topic or something, could be cool. I think that Risacher, I can never. I know somebody pronounced it for me in the comments once before, but I can't remember how it's pronounced. I'll learn all the names eventually. I promise. It's just not that time of the year yet. But I think he would probably be a little bit better fit, and I think it'd be better off if they just went and got a veteran point guard to kind of help lead all these young dudes with their ball handling knowledge. And then more draft picks. I mean, sure, you're building a young team, right? You already have your superstar in Wemby. He looks like he's going to win some MVPs one day and probably some finals MVPs, right? He's that good already. But yeah, no, if you can get some more picks for some guys like a Doug McDermott or something like that, Chetty Osman's obviously a name that's appeared a lot in this. Good for them. Toronto Raptors, draft picks Kuminga, Patrick Williams. Okay, and they have Bruce Brown in the picture here because they're probably trying to move Bruce Brown still. Like we've said, Bruce Brown fits anywhere. Whoever's willing to pay the most for him, you send him there, right? Makes a ton of sense. They're trying to get more draft capital because they're building kind of a younger team around Scotty, Quickly, and RJ, which I don't know how that's going to go. It hasn't gone like great in terms of win-losses or anything yet, but the players are playing well, so maybe you figure that out eventually. But bringing in Kuminga, interesting. Kind of feel like him and Scotty Barnes kind of collide a little bit there. So not necessarily sure why that would happen, aside from just the fact you're saying we're bringing in raw talent and one of these guys is going to work. That's kind of the Toronto thing to do, isn't it? If we bring in enough 6'9" athletes that can play the 3 or the 4, eventually we're going to start winning games, right? So that's just them going back to their own ways. And speaking of guys like that, Patrick Williams, right? I think Patrick Williams has so much potential. And I work very closely with some people that have coached him, and they all say the same thing. They're like, his potential is through the roof. Like the Kawhi Leonard comparisons are very much there. His ball handling's great. His shooting's great. He's strong. He plays great defense. Like, he's quick. He's athletic. He does all these things. Well, it's just not a mentality of his. And I think it's a real disservice that the Bulls didn't like move some people around to see if he could kind of be that dude if given the opportunity. And so that's really disappointing to me. Obviously not giving up hope on that or anything, and he's still a very solid NBA player, but I don't know. I just wish that they would have given him more than a chance. If the Raptors want to take a chance on him and he's like their 3 or something like that, then okay, fair enough. Utah Jazz, another Quentin Grimes, AJ Griffin draft picks. Yeah, AJ Griffin looked like he had a ton of potential at one point. I didn't completely understand it. I know, like, not that I didn't see that he was playing well. I just didn't necessarily see the long term of it. And I think we're kind of seeing that now. Obviously, I'm always open to being proven wrong about guys. I'd rather see guys get better than worse. But not a huge AJ Griffin fan. I wouldn't take a chance on him personally. Now, Quentin Grimes, yeah, again, I don't really know why the Knicks like want to trade him. I guess just because he's their like most valuable draft or not draft trade like piece, right? Like, because a lot of people would like him. Just a nice scorer, shooter, young guy, right? Like, he just kind of fits the mold of a modern NBA 2. And yeah, no, if you're Utah, like, you don't necessarily have that right now. And so depending on what you're giving up to make that happen, I think that makes a ton of sense. So who would you be moving over? Is that like a Chris Dunn trade or something like that? Is Colin Sexton on the move in something like this? I don't know. You guys tell me. And the last one, the Washington Wizards. I can only imagine what this looks like. Draft picks, Zaire Williams, Isaiah Jackson. The Isaiah Jackson one makes 0 sense to me. I'm not sure what they're getting out of that. Like, obviously, I understand like who Isaiah Jackson is as a basketball player and everything, but like, what are we doing in this? Is this us trading Tyus Jones to the Pacers and we're getting Isaiah Jackson back? Like, Isaiah Jackson's not pushing anybody over the top. Like, you can just kind of quote me as saying that. Like, that's not a difference maker or anything. Zaire Williams at least like is kind of interesting because like he's an athletic. He's shown some like shooting potential and stuff in the NBA so far, and he's like started NBA games, hasn't quite come into anything yet. So maybe given a bigger opportunity in Washington, something happens. But you also already have a bunch of young guys that play his position. So I don't know. Draft picks, yeah, you guys need more draft picks. That is the number one thing. You should be trading any decent asset you have, not named Koulibaly and probably Corey Kispert at this point. Nobody's touching Johnny Davis. You guys are stuck with him. I don't think anybody wants Avdia necessarily, which is fine. He's a solid player for y'all. But yeah, you trade Gafford, right? You trade Jones. There's not a ton of assets after that. But y'all need some draft picks because you didn't really get any for the Bradley Beal thing. And man, I don't know. Y'all are stuck with Jordan Poole and Kuzma right now. I hope Kuzma gets traded, just for Wizards' sake and everything. Because man, this franchise might be the most hopeless at the moment. Doesn't look good for y'all. They can't even think of anything interesting to get y'all. They're just like, hey, just hopefully y'all get some draft picks for the talent you do have right now, and then just wait for the rest of the contracts to expire, man, because it's rough out here. But hey, that's the 30 teams and everything. We're getting close to the trade deadline. I'm excited. I've told y'all before, the trade deadline's like a damn holiday to me. I just love it. I just love talking about all the new fits. We'll make videos on all the trades when they happen. I'm really excited about it. But yeah, until next time, y'all let me know who you want your team to trade for and what do you think they need and everything. As a Bulls fan, please unload everybody. I know it's not going to happen, but please, if I put it into the universe, maybe it'll happen. But yeah, I won't complain anymore. We'll see y'all later. Bye.